This next organelle requires a special introduction. I call it
the mighty mitochondria.
Of course, you probably learned it in school as
the powerhouse of the cell.
Anyway, you see, the cell requires energy to run. In order to get this energy, the cell needs glucose or some other source of energy. Glucose contains lots of high-energy carbon-hydrogen bonds, and this energy can then be transferred by the breakdown of glucose into water and carbon dioxide. This energy is then used to make ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. Cells can have several mitochondria depending on the activity of the cell. In humans,
the mighty mitochondrion
are in abundance in muscle cells to allow us to move our bodies.
The mighty mito...
Okay, I'm done. Never mind.
The powerhouse of the cell
has two membranes, folded internal membranes called cristae and a fluid-filled matrix. The cristae is where most ATP is made. The foldings allow for more surface area of ATP production. The mitochondrion in most eukaryotic cells receives glucose from the food that we eat and oxygen from the air. The addition of oxygen allows the mitochondrion to have an increased yield in ATP. As a result, water and carbon dioxide are given off as byproducts alongside
a lot of ATP.
The mitochondrion has its own DNA and ribosomes, both of which mimic prokaryotes, which suggests that mitochondria may have once been a bacterial species before being uptaken by a larger cell. Before we continue, it is important to know that both animals and plants have mitochondria to help make ATP. What are some differences between animals and plant cells? And while most of the cell is similar between both animals and plants, these two kingdoms of life have strikingly different lifestyles. Animals move and have to consume other living things in order to obtain energy and nutrients. Plants must gather energy from the sun and nutrients from the soil. And due to these lifestyles, there are some differences between plant and animal cells that all relate back to the structure and function. Animals have centrioles, centrosomes, and lysosomes, while plants do not. Plants have a cell wall, chloroplast, and a large central vacuole, while animals do not. Let's start with the cell wall. The one major difference in plant and animals is that animals are, meaty, with lots of softer tissue, while plants are a lot more rigid. And this is due to the cell wall in plants. The cell wall is a rigid structure right outside of the plant cell membrane that functions in providing the cell shape, structural support, and protection from the elements. Cell walls are found in prokaryotic cells as well as fungi and some protists. But the chemical composition of the cell wall in prokaryotes is peptidoglycan, while it is cellulose in plant cell walls. You may not be familiar with cellulose, but dietary fiber is made from cellulose in plants. Dietary fiber is indigestible to us, but it is important in regulating our digestive system and helping us with our daily Chloroplasts, like mitochondria, have their own DNA and ribosomes, but they function in making glucose by taking sunlight and powering the reaction to create bonds between water and carbon dioxide. A waste product formed is good old-fashioned oxygen. Yeah, I'm addicted to that. The chloroplast has two membranes with a fluid-filled space called the stroma. This disc-like structures are called thylakoids, and the granum is a stack of thylakoids. This is where the light-dependent reactions of photosynthesis occur. Chlorophyll, a green pigment, is found in chloroplast and help regulate this process of photosynthesis. Finally, the central vacuole only is found in plants and functions in water storage and digesting incoming materials. It can take up to 90% of the internal makings of a plant cell. And note, when a plant wilts, the vacuoles of the plant shrink, and when a flower stands tall, the vacuoles are filled. Now that we've completed all the organelles, let's get into how cells connect with each other in a tissue. And we'll first start with the extracellular matrix of animal cells. The primary protein fiber found outside of the cell to help connect with and communicate with nearby cells is collagen. And cell-to-cell communication takes place by cell surface receptors. And when receptors come in contact with the appropriate molecule, it causes a change in the shape of the molecule, making the cell respond to said molecule. Of course, cells can communicate with each other by using these intercellular junctions. In plants, they have a solid cell wall that separates each cell. So plasmodesmata are simple little openings between the cells that allow for the transport of molecules and water. And this also helps to explain how water can go from the roots to the tops of trees, utilizing the opening between the cells of plant vascular tissue. In animal cells, tight junctions are developed to form a watertight seal holding cells together, and this prevents the cells from leaking components into each other. Desmosomes are similar to tight junctions, only cadherin proteins are embedded in neighboring cells, making the tissue look like a continuous sheet. Gap junctions develop when channel proteins align, forming donut holes between two cells, allowing passage of materials between those cells. And now that we know the inner workings of the cell, let's take a look at the important structure that dictates what comes into the cell and leaves the cell, the plasma membrane.